He's going to go straight forward. Is he in?
Ball's on the ground. Recovered by Penn Trafford. Recovered that ball, Sean.
They have the football. What's the word? They say Penn Trafford and Luca Butler have forced a fumble.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Myers.
And welcome back to another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. For the first time in 2025, Sean Myers, Dan Flickinger, back talking about the biggest stories in Westmoreland County high school football, sprinkling maybe even a little college football as well. And Flick, first off, welcome back. It is always an exciting time of year. We were able to get out and do 4 different games this past Friday in week 0. We know just about every team now plays in week 0. 17 of the 18 Westmoreland County teams suited up for games that actually counted, Bell Vernon the only exception. And before we get into a jam-packed show that we'll have our top performers, we'll have our plays of the week. We're going to have interviews with the first-year head coach Colin Haw of Kiski area and Dom Dietrich, the terrific quarterback for Hempfield area. A look ahead at week 1. I think we have to start before we get into specific games of just high school football being back in, about 8 months since we last were on the sidelines and up in the press box calling these games.
And it always sneaks up on you, right? Like our last broadcast of the summer is usually Latrobe Dairy Teener League, 13, 14, 15-year-old baseball, and that's in July. And it always seems like, okay, we're going to have like a month off before football starts. No, it's not a month. We're already hitting training camps like a couple weeks later, and then all of a sudden week 0 sneaks up on you. It's like, wait a second, the football season really begins on Friday, and that's where we were, man. A lot of fun always. It's a different atmosphere like that first week, I feel like. And then, of course, you kind of feel that atmosphere towards the end of the year, like playoffs, but everybody just being juiced up. Sean and I were at Penn Trafford in Norwin, and there was a great crowd there. You had both big student sections, and that's what week 0 is all about, that community aspect of it. There's a lot of rivalry games in week 0. You see some of the top teams in the WPIAL playing teams from out of state in showcases and things of that nature. So it's a lot of fun, and now we get a chance to see what's in store for week 1.
And it's a lot of unknowns as well. Now, for maybe the coaches and players, not so much, but for fans and broadcasters alike, we try to do our research, but you never really know who's going to be a star player, who might be in a new position, who might burst onto the scene. And we're going to discuss all of those things happening this past week. But I think the biggest story, you and I had a front row view of it. Penn Trafford, Norwin. The Warriors escape with a victory, and I know I said that on the broadcast as well. It felt like they had the game in hand for long stretches. They ended up winning 34-31, and to say that it was a controversial victory would be an understatement. You put a video out of the fumble in the end zone recovered by the Warriors. Tristan Tavares, who was going for a go-ahead touchdown, got the ball right up to the goal line. Ball came out. It was rolled a fumble recovered by the Warriors because it was in the end zone. They advanced it out to the 20 with the touchback. They got 1 first down to seal the victory. It certainly could have gone the other way. I know a lot of Knights fans are saying it should have gone the other way. It's still a great game, and both teams are going to benefit from it. But I think the biggest story is that it maybe, for all intents and purposes, should have been a Norwin go-ahead touchdown that did not ultimately get called.
Yeah, I mean, based on our video that we showed, it was interesting, though. You put it up online, and I wouldn't say it was unanimous that people felt that, he did score a touchdown or he didn't fumble. There were still some people that said, oh, yeah, that was a fumble. Now, they may have been wearing, green and gold colors. But I always think that's interesting. You see that in hockey sometimes. They'll put up something on social media like a hit or something, and, half the people say it's dirty, half the people say it's not, so you get opinions from all over the place. It looked like from, our opinion that, Tristan was either down and it should have been second down and goal at the inch line, or that he crossed the goal line. I also saw a picture circulating over the weekend, yes. A still picture that, again, looked like he had his hand on the ball down and crossed the goal line.
He was laying flat on the turf. Yeah, he was flat on the turf.
Yeah, his hand on the ball, flat on the turf, that he was down. Now, you didn't know when his knee went down, so it could have been the fact that it could have been second down and goal from the one as opposed to a touchdown. But, at that point, you're still thinking that Norman has a pretty good chance of scoring. So it was kind of a shame to see a game, end like that, with a lot of controversy. And, Mike Brown was very polite after the game, saying that he, politely disagreed with the call. I have a feeling, off the air and away from the media, he was probably a little more upset than that. But it was a fun game though, Sean. It was like one of those games, it looked like Penn Trafford was going to run away with it. They were up 13-0. They were in control and led basically, well, they led the entire game, but they were in control the entire game. But Norman just hung around. And anytime you have Tristan Tavares, man, you have a chance of coming back. And again, Norman just hung around. It looked like maybe Penn Trafford was going to win the game on that Ben Grabowski long run that put them up by, 10 points. And then Norman quickly answered to go to cut the lead back down to 3. And then again, they had that great opportunity, first down and goal from the 1. And then, again, it looked like Norman scored or at least would have a second down and goal from the inch line. Unfortunately for the Knights, they rolled it a fumble. And fortunately for the Warriors, they recovered that fumble. And they got the ball at the 20-yard line and ran out the clock. But like you mentioned, week 0, I know it hurts, certainly. These teams, this game matters to both communities. But in the big scope of things, Norwin, they have a chance of making a playoff push this year, right? And Penn Trafford certainly has the same opportunity.
And maybe it's not really indicative of how the season's going to go at all, because remember last year, Norwin won the game. And they won just one more game and lost their final 8. Penn Trafford was 0-1. They ended up having a really nice run to end the season, won a playoff game as well. So week 0, not necessarily indicative of success forthcoming or failures forthcoming. Again, I think it's a game where both teams benefit, because when you play in a game like that comes down to truly inch or two, you feel like you can't replicate those type of snaps, those type of reps in a scrimmage. It's just so much more on the line that they'll both benefit from, because if they're in that situation again, which quite frankly, these teams will probably be in close games at some point, they at least know what it's taking, and to have that experience is invaluable on Fridays, especially for a lot of guys who are playing meaningful snaps for the first time.
Absolutely. That's what week 0 is all about. And it's about having fun. Again, a lot of these games are rivalry games, so they're more fun than maybe some other games. And certainly learning and getting some of the new guys' feet wet, that kind of thing. And there were some people over the weekend and said, "How was that Penn Trafford Norwin game? I saw it was pretty crazy." And for a fan, it was really fun, right? A lot of scoring, big play at the end, some controversy thrown in there. But I think for the coaches, I think both would tell you we didn't play our best, play really well.
Norwin had 5 turnovers.
Norwin, 2 or 3 red zone turnovers then. Penn Trafford committed some big penalties, put them behind the 8 ball. There was a lot of running room out there that I'm sure coaches, didn't really like as well. Big injury, too, for Penn Trafford. Jamison Yurt did not play in that game, and he was their leading tackler last year, one of the best, in the WPIAL. So hopefully he'll be back sometime soon. But, but there was a lot to, I think, learn from that game, and a lot to learn in film study, I'm sure, the next day.
Well, there were 2 Westmoreland County teams that certainly had expectations of being title contenders this year in Class 1A, that being both Jeanette and Greensburg Central Catholic. They're both 0-1, and I think both of these outcomes are at least a little surprising. They were going against teams that were a little bit bigger in terms of enrollment, but for Jeanette, they were dominating Mount Pleasant. They were up 23-0. The Vikings at home came storming back. They win 29-23. GCC at the very last second falls to Shadyside Academy 28-26. Bulldogs got a touchdown in the final 10 seconds or so to win that one. So not a great start for 2 teams that have title aspirations in 1A. Ultimately, I guess this is a situation where they have to realize, even though they have the hype, they have success from a year ago, then they've both got a ton of guys back. GCC graduated just 3 players from a year ago. Jeanette graduated just 2. You almost take for granted that they're going to pick up right where they left off. It didn't happen in either scenario. For Jeanette, I don't know how that game changed so quickly, but I know Brandon Anthony afterwards in our little video recaps, which seemingly were well received, they said, some mistakes by Jeanette and Mount Pleasant's size and physicality kind of took over. And for GCC, I think they're still trying to figure out their offensive identity because they've made massive changes, at least at the start of this season, from how last season ended, moving Samir Crosby from quarterback back to receiver. And it seems like they might have to make a decision in upcoming weeks if that's really going to be sustainable, if they move him back to quarterback where he's going to have the ball in his hands every snap.
Yeah, and I think in that game, and we kind of had a feeling going in. I mean, we don't know, obviously. We're not at the practices. Greensburg Central Catholic, JT would know that best. But it just seems we've seen it though in the past where a team tries to move, a talented guy out from quarterback to wide receiver, maybe to try to spread the love a little bit more in the offense.
Jeanette
maybe
did that a year ago.
Get him in, yeah. Jeanette tried to do that a year ago. Try to get him into some open space, like Jeanette tried to do with Kimani Brown. And then all of a sudden, after maybe a half, it's like, okay, our best strength is to have Kimani at quarterback or Samir at quarterback. This isn't really working. When the bullets start really flying, you go back to what you can trust. And I think maybe that's what Greensburg Central Catholic did on Friday night, because I know Samir was running the ball late in the game. So we'll see if that changes or how teams will differ, from that. Like Jeanette, obviously, it became permanent last year with Kimani eventually taking over at quarterback. But yeah, just some crazy games. Maybe a silver lining, a blessing in disguise. I don't know. Maybe losing that first game can allow you to refocus. Maybe kind of take you down a peg if you were coming in a little bit too high on yourselves. And I'm not saying Jeanette or GCC was doing that, but if they were, maybe you have a chance to kind of refocus. But you mentioned that Jeanette Mount Pleasant game. Jayhawks scored 23 unanswered points in the first half, and then they don't score at all in the second half. Mount Pleasant runs off, 29 or whatever it was, and win the game. Just absolutely crazy. Jeanette actually had a 300 to 101 offensive total yardage gained in the first half compared to Mount Pleasant. They outgained them 300 to 101, which is crazy. And then in the second half, Mount Pleasant returned the favor. I think looking back at it, Sean, you mentioned like kind of what happened to Jeanette. Jeanette's up 23-0. Mount Pleasant went on an 80-yard drive right before the end of the first half. So they got that momentum going into halftime. They went up 23-8 at that point. Stephen Perdina scored. And then the first drive of the second half for Jeanette, Mendoza fumbles deep in Jeanette territory. Mount Pleasant recovers, and they score a touchdown. So just like that, it could have been 23-0 going into halftime, but just like that, it's 23 to 15 at that point. So it really became a new game very quickly. And I think those were the two biggest, points of the game and plays that really turned that game around. And of course, Amani Christian, that game was just back and forth with GCC, and the Saints end up getting that game-winning touchdown with like 10 seconds left, and it really could have went either way. So they were kind of exciting games, but again, maybe something that Jeanette and GCC can take away from it, much like Penn Trafford and Norman.
Well, a team that can take a lot of positives from week 0 is your alma mater, the Derry area Trojans. They knock off Ligonier Valley. Now, what's the name of this terrific rivalry game?
Riot on the Ridge.
Yes. And last year it went in favor of Ligonier Valley, which I thought was a little surprising. We thought Derry maybe could have a pretty solid 2024. It turned out to really be a disappointing year for the Trojans. And I know they lost some skill guys about halfway through. Obviously, they're going to have to stay healthy, but maybe this is a sign of a progress for Mike Arone's squad. 33-14, they win against Ligonier Valley. And really, it was a little bit more lopsided than that. The Rams got a couple of late touchdowns that were sort of cosmetic variety. Good for them. Obviously, you don't want to get shut out or blown out in week 0, so they got a little bit of momentum late. But this was a really good game. And Max Doherty, he's a guy that's been an accomplished player, but this is kind of a new opportunity for him in a starring role offensively, and he delivered. I mean, almost 150 yards on the ground, and probably could have had much, much more if the game was competitive throughout the second half.
I think that was a big win for Derry to start the season. A lopsided win over a team that, again, beat them last year. I think that helps a lot, but I think it all kind of started up front for them. They haven't had the biggest line over the years, certainly with their guys up front, but you look at guys like Dylan Pitzer and Piper, and I mean, those guys really were physical and pushed Ligonier Valley around a little bit in the game. And then you mentioned Max Doherty needing to kind of step up into a big role this year and and take the ball a good bit during these games, get a lot of handoffs, a lot of work, and we saw some big things from him. So I think it was important for Derry's sake, not only to get a win, but to do it in kind of convincing fashion. I think really did help out a lot. Freeport's going to be a physical team this week; they always are. So we'll see how they match up against them, and match up against Mount Pleasant down the road. Because again, Mount Pleasant's also a big team, but I think it's a good start for the Trojans. A lot of times, offensive line is the hardest thing, to get right, and maybe Derry has that right now, and that can certainly play later on in the season.
I thought Roger Beidel, the longtime Ligonier Valley coach, made an interesting point. I mean, it's the reality in some cases. He said Doherty's as big or bigger than some of the Rams' offensive linemen. So, yeah. I mean, it's a size disadvantage, even though the schools are only separated by one class, Derry in 3A, Ligonier Valley in 2A. That was a tough matchup, at least this year, for the Rams. They didn't seemingly have an answer, so they're going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board. I will say this for Derry as well. This is a non-conference game. They're going to be playing a bunch of those before they get into the interstate conference play. There's 6 teams in that conference, and I think other than Elizabeth Forward, it's a lot of question marks. Now, we see an impressive victory by Mount Pleasant. We see an impressive victory by Southmoreland. We'll get to them in a little bit. The Yaw Cougars also won. Mm-hmm. So the interstate conference got off to a good start, but I think Derry could be in the thick of the playoff discussion when it's all said and done, just because I don't think there's a ton of separation between teams 2 through 6.
It's one of the, and I talked about this last year with that first year of realignment. I mean, it's one of the, in terms of, for Westmoreland Sports Network, one of the best conferences to keep an eye on. And I know that, it's tough for those teams other than EF to have a lot of success in the playoffs. We haven't seen it, from Southmoreland, from Derry, from York. And, Mount Pleasant maybe a little bit more, but not, still not as much as they've wanted to have. But still, when you talk about geographically, all the schools are close to one another. And the parity, I think, every spot below Elizabeth Forward is up for grabs right now. I can't really make a prediction on who's going to, finish 2, 3, 4, or 5. So it should be a lot of fun to keep an eye on this conference.
Yeah, and keep in mind, one of the teams from that conference that made the playoffs last year, Greensburg-Salem. We'll get to them in a little bit when we run down all the scores. They were on the wrong side of a little surprising outcome. So they are 0-1. They're maybe the exception for all the success that the Interstate Conference had in Week 0. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will run down all of the scores from Week 0. We're also going to touch on the top performers, passers, rushers, receivers. And then a little bit later on, plays of the week, we'll talk to the first-year head coach, Colin Haw of Kiski area. He got his first victory on Friday night. Dom Dietrich, the quarterback for the Hempfield area Spartans, he's our player of the week. And, of course, a look ahead at the Week 1 schedule. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Game day or any day, the power of Bowser is here to get you where you need to go. From the latest Hyundai, Nissan, Subaru, Chevrolet, GMC, Buick, and Genesis models to quality pre-owned vehicles, Bowser has the perfect lineup for your drive. Look for a winning deal. Bowser's got the plays, great financing, top trade-in values, and a selection that's always in season. From the first whistle to the final buzzer, Bowser Automotive is your hometown MVP. Bowser Automotive, Route 51 South on top of the hill. PowerofBowser.com.
Play It Again Sports in Greensburg is your locally owned and operated sporting goods store. We set ourselves apart by offering a wide variety of both new and used equipment at competitive prices. Located in the Greengate East Plaza, below Walmart, Play It Again Sports' knowledgeable staff will help you and your family prepare for every athletic season. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or trade, we are here as your one-stop shop. At Play It Again Sports in Greensburg, everybody plays.
We continue here with Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Glad to be back here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean and Flick. We already talked about the biggest takeaways from Week 0. Let's run down all of the scores from across Westmoreland County. Some of these games we've already talked about a little bit. You could go back and watch Penn Trafford's 34-31 victory over Norwin. You could also go back and watch Plum's impressive victory, 42-13 over Franklin Regional. That was surprising, Flick. Well, a year ago, the Panthers dominated that matchup. Now, I do think Plum is better, but maybe a sign that the the Panthers have taken a pretty significant step back, at least through one game. I know that doesn't necessarily hold true the entire season, but not the start that they were looking for Coach Getsy.
No, not at all. That definitely rose some eyebrows. There were some other scores that we're going to get to as well that they were kind of like, wow. But we'll see how Franklin Regional, handles Hempfield this week. A nice local matchup.
Yeah, they did graduate some really, really good players from a year ago. Kyle Dupill, who was one of the most impressive running backs, at least putting up massive games each and every week. They're going to try to replace him. Their starting quarterback, Chase Lemke, some good linemen, their top receiver. It's a lot, but
yeah, I mean, they lost a good bit.
That said,
and Sean,
they're not going to make that excuse.
And a lot of times you'll see teams that do return not that many starters, that lose a lot. They'll have a tough start to the season, and then they'll pick it up a little bit as the middle of the season comes around. So Franklin Regional maybe using these games as kind of warm up games to the conference, maybe more than others.
Well, a team that warmed up late in week 0 but got the victory, the Mount Pleasant area Vikings. We talked about that 29-23 over the Jayhawks. You can go back and watch that. You can also check out the Derry area victory 33-14 against Ligonier Valley. Well, we're going to hear from Dom Dietrich in just a little bit. He is our player of the week. He led the Spartans to an impressive win against a pretty good North Hills program, 28-23 in week 0. And I know it's something you're going to talk to him about, Flick, but playing with a heavy heart, that's a big-time performance by him. He wasn't the only guy who shined, though. Aiden Steinbeiser was really good. They've got some real weapons at receiver, and I think if they can play defense this year, they're going to put some points up for sure.
Yeah, Jack Kopis, Nick Marcus also had touchdown catches. They looked really good. He is an incredible kid. I couldn't have felt better for him. And I knew he was going to have a big game. I just knew it. I personally never met TJ. I knew of him certainly playing at Jeanette, coaching at Jeanette. I actually didn't realize he coached at Penn Trafford until unfortunately he passed away. But we had a chance to talk with Dom a couple times last year. He's one of those kids that you can actually have conversations with off the air, about football, about life, whatever. He's very down to earth, mature kid, and couldn't feel happier for him, wearing that number 18, wearing his dad's jersey, and just had a feeling he was going to have a big game. I'm sure he'll be, when I talk with him, I'm sure he'll be very excited to be 1-0.
And keep in mind, he didn't play in week 0 last year.
Right.
I mean, he was going through his own, traumatic experience at the time, and thankfully he was able to come back, I think, the next week or maybe a couple weeks later and finish the season really, really impressively. But good sign for him, good sign for the Spartans as well to knock off the Indians. Well, we're going to hear from the first-year head coach Colin Haw as well for Kiski area after his team got a 21-0 victory over Knock. Surprising developments in this one. Avon Shirley was the quarterback. Now, I had no idea that he was going to be playing quarterback. He was their best receiver a year ago. Maybe not a permanent move, but it made sense in week 0, and he paid it off. He didn't have to throw a ton, but it was relatively efficient. They also got the benefit of a really nice performance from Ashton Taylor, a freshman running back. But the biggest takeaway, their defense. It was just very, very good blanking the Knights to get their coach his first victory. We'll hear a lot more about that one coming up in just a little bit. Speaking of first coaching victories, Southmoreland Scotties did the same for Dustin Show. They did so in emphatic fashion, 40-0 against Valley. Now the Vikings, they're coming off of a winless season. They are not a program that is really at the same level as Southmoreland. That said, the Scotties to go out and handle business was impressive.
Yeah, they took care of business. That's what you wanted to see from them, right? I mean, you always say when you go up against a team that you're heavily favored against, you go out and maybe you win by 3 touchdowns or something. That's not that impressive. You probably didn't play very well, but they went out and scored 40 points. And they broke in their new quarterback, Dawson Wolf, as well. So, that kind of helped get his feet wet a little bit as a varsity starter in his first year. And that's a nice win for them. Congratulations to our man Shof over there. I know he was really excited. I sent him a text message, and he was excited to get that first W.
Want to send our well wishes as well to Josh Dunlap of Valley. He was injured on the final play of the game, had to go to the hospital. Seemingly he's going to be okay, but that is so scary. And the last play of the game, that's just terrible. So hopefully he is back and able to suit up sooner rather than later for Valley. The Cougars 1-0 for the second straight season. They edged the Brentwood Spartans 21-13. Remember, Brentwood was a playoff team, albeit in Class 1A a year ago. Aiden Schaefer, their new quarterback, showed that he can run the football. 3 touchdowns for the Cougars. We briefly mentioned disappointing start for Greensburg-Salem. After they were 4-0 last year, they fall to Albert Gallatin 48-33. For whatever reason, the teams from Fayette County, they accounted themselves very well, because Connellsville area also had a victory against the Westmoreland County team. The Falcons 28-13 over Greater Latrobe. A year ago, the Wildcats won 41-0. So what a difference a year can make. Although you could more specifically say what a difference losing Alex Tash and John Wetzel. And then Andy Tash did not play in that game. That was kind of a late development, because when we went out to Greater Latrobe, he was front and center practicing, but got banged up in the scrimmage. I would imagine it's a much different game if he plays, but still not the start that Coach McIntyre wanted in his first game leading that program. Yeah,
that was really surprising. That was one of the other games, we heard the score on Friday night, like, wow, 28-13. But, when you lose what you lost last year in Tash and Wetzel and some others, it's really tough to replace those guys. And then you lose Andy Tash to injury. Hopefully it's nothing serious. That makes it even more difficult. I mean, he's the leader of your team. So it was a tough situation from the beginning. And, we'll see if Latrobe can kind of bounce back this week.
Another Westmoreland County score. Avonworth knocks off Burrell 35-6. The Antelopes, of course, the reigning Class 3A WPIAL champions. So no easing to the season for Coach Girardi and the Burrell Buccaneers. We talked about Shady Side Academy's narrow victory over Greensburg Central Catholic earlier, 28-26, and Monessen blanking Charleroi 44-0. Let's now look at some of the top performers from week 0. Passers, rushers, and receivers. Will run down the top performer from across the WPIAL, as well as several notables in Westmoreland County. And Evan Devine of Bethel Park. You're going to hear Bethel Park a couple times on this list. He was the leading passer in all of the WPIAL. 359 yards through the air on 15 of 28 passing. Kimani Brown led Westmoreland County quarterbacks passing with 214 yards, 10 of 25. Dom Dietrich, who we're going to hear from just a bit at Hempfield, a very efficient 14 of 17 for 206. Tristan Tavares of Norwin, 133 yards through the air. The aforementioned Dawson Wolf making his start with the Southmoreland Scotties through for 123. And Kyer Payne of Monessen, 112 yards. The leading rusher also from Bethel Park, that is David Dennison, 238 yards on the ground. Tristan Tavares, the quarterback for Norwin, rushes for 203. Ben Grabowski in that same game, 188, representing the Penn Trafford Warriors. Max Doherty of Derry area, 148. Ashton Taylor, the freshman from Kiski area, went for 121. And Hempfield area's Aiden Steinbeiser, 118 yards rushing. Lastly, top receiver, Summit Academy's Demetrius Crosby, 10 grabs for 209 yards. And the top performer from Westmoreland County, we're going to probably say this name quite a bit for leading receivers, Jace Powell, Jeanette, 4 grabs for 131 yards. That will do it for the top performers. We'll take a break. When we come back, it is the always popular plays of the week, and we have got 6 ones to highlight, so don't go anywhere. That's upcoming as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Some moments on the field go beyond the game. They shape who we become. At Home Team Collections, we honor those moments with the care and craftsmanship they deserve. Because these moments aren't just memories, they're a legacy worth preserving. Any team, any sport, any logo. Visit HomeTeamCollections.com today and save $10 off your first order.
I am the swiftest creature alive. I can make it. I will make it.
That That's where we come in. The Collision Shop by Jason Mignone is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered. Body repairs, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our friendly office staff is happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit thecollisionshopbyjason.com for our complete list of services.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron and Click. Are you ready?
I am ready, baby. The first week, or week 0, week whatever it is. First time players of the week, baby. Let's do it.
Let's do it, indeed. We begin plays of the week with Penn Trafford, and Ben Grabowski started his junior year in grand fashion. A monster performance on the ground against Norwin. He showed his speed on his third touchdown, restoring PT's 2-score lead in the fourth quarter, with myself and Dave Franzak on the call.
It was Louver and Derek Carr last year who played quarterback. They went Wildcat every now and then with Whipple, and then late in the season, Grabowski. Speaking of whom, a big run by Ben Grabowski. Can they catch him? He goes the distance, Ben Grabowski, and he gives the Warriors all the momentum back. "62 yards for the big Grabowski, and the Warriors are up 33-24.
Man, does that one hurt. They had him in the backfield. Right there, it looked like maybe he was going to get stopped, and he just put the burners on.
And that's how you respond right there if you're the Warriors after the Knights pull within 3.
Yeah, that's the touchdown I was talking about at the beginning of the show. 7:39 left, and you're thinking, okay, that's it. Penn Trafford's going to win the game. They salted away with the big touchdown run by the big Grabowski. Sorry, I took that line from you. And then Norwin just hung around and ended up probably should have won the game at the end, but can't take away that run by Ben. He is going to have a monster year for Penn Trafford, I think.
Well, Norwin, indeed, Dan, did more than just hang around. The Knights, they'll maybe more so remember the near touchdown that wasn't by Tristan Tavares, but his long run at the midway point of the fourth quarter, that was stellar in its own right. It pulled Norwin back within 3 points, again called by myself and Dave.
This is why Google's so good in Football Reference. Tavares stays on his feet, elusive inside the 20, and he's going to go. What a run by Tristan Tavares. They could not get him. Tyberski did his best, but it wasn't enough, and the Knights will not die.
Man, what a run there by Tristan. Makes things very, very interesting here, Sean. Nice little juke there. You're right, Tyberski was right there. I think the only way Tyberski doesn't illegally make his tackle, I mean, the only way he could make a tackle really was almost the horse collar.
Yes, sir, and there is the answer right there, and that's the reason that Norwin was in position at the end of the game to win it. Tristan Tavares just doing things with his arm and legs, and I can't wait to see the type of season that he's going to have. The beginning of that call, Sean, you were talking about Football Reference. Do you remember what you were talking about and why you were talking about Football Reference?
Joe Jurevicius.
Oh, that's right. That was Brian Brzezinski's former teammate at Penn State, right?
That's right, and they were both receivers who were very, very tall in an era where that wasn't the norm.
It was very important to get that in. I can't believe Tristan did that to you.
Yes, well, I'll allow it. I probably should have got that out of the way before the play started, but nonetheless,
that's all right.
Yeah, it happens.
It's
that's
week
why
0.
that video does all the work. No one really has to listen to me anyway. The video and Chris Smith are great videographers. They do the heavy lifting when it comes to those types of broadcasts. Anyway, we'll continue plays of the week with Derry Area and Max Doherty. He began his year with a bang, scoring on a long run on his very first carry of the season, putting the Trojans on the board first in their convincing win against Ligonier Valley, with John Flickinger and Bob Lazinski detailing the action.
Quickly up to the football, and it's Doherty off the right side. He has a big hole. He stays on his feet. The 30, the 25, 20, 10, 5. Max Doherty house, and the Trojans are on the board first. They lead at 6-0.
Well, first carry of the 2025 season. Max takes it to the house. Trojans jump up 6-0 early.
Well, you heard Coach Arone say he worked on the farm all summer. That usually helps out a little bit, but Max didn't have a lot to do when he first initially got the football because of the blocking of the left side of the offensive line for the Trojans. And then number 9 did the rest in a 6-0 Trojan lead.
Took it in from 42 yards out, John.
Mentioned the blocking up front for the Trojans, and you saw it right there on the first carry for Max Doherty of the 2025 season. Goes for a long touchdown run. And again, I think he's going to have a big year for Derry and have those guys up front keep blowing open some holes for him.
I guess there's two ways to look at it. When you score on your first carry of the season, either it's all downhill from there, or it's a sign of things to come for the rest of the season. Maybe that's the more optimistic way of looking at it, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, I saw Doherty crossing the goal line to go into the end zone there. It looks like Derry's end zone is painted a little bit differently this year. They have a robot, Sean, I heard, that paints the... And see, this is rare now because nobody has natural surfaces.
Is this like the
anymore.
1990s Fox football robots? Are they...
Oh, yeah, not those. We'll get those on the broadcast later. But, yeah, they have the robots that do the paint, like at the 50-yard line. They painted the Trojan real nice, and maybe they did that in the end zone too. But you never see... You don't have to do that with turf, obviously, but Derry's still one of the few that has grass.
I need a robot to maybe paint my house at some point.
Maybe we'll get the tackling robot at Latrobe to do that.
Oh, I miss that guy. Yeah, we didn't see him this year.
No,
anyway,
no.
We're going
on
off the rails
vacation
already. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he was tired. All right, well, we'll continue. We'll try to get back to the task at hand here, and that's plays of the week as we shift to Jeanette. And it was all Jayhawks early at Mount Pleasant. They scored the first 23 points, highlighted by a spectacular play by who else? Kimani Brown, whose touchdown scamper extended Jeanette's lead in the second quarter, with Brent Wiggum and Anthony D'Annunzio captioning that play.
Hawks break the huddle, just 7 seconds here on the play clock. Going to have to hurry this one up to get the snap off. They will do it just in time. Quarterback draw, Brown right up the middle. He is going to have a first down, and Moore cuts it back. Kimani Brown, look at him go, 46 yards, touchdown Jayhawks. The lead has now jumped up. Another 6 points on the board, 22-0 the score with the PAT coming.
4 possessions for the Jayhawks, 4 scores for the Jayhawks. Kimani Brown, so smart, so savvy. That time saw what was in front of him, made a little move with the line of scrimmage, picked up a few yards, saw some real estate ahead of him off to the right, and just took off to the races. 6 points for the Jayhawks.
The funny thing about that call is, those guys usually do get excited, but for that run, there really wasn't a whole lot of excitement. I think because it was like, okay, Jeanette's starting to pour it on here, and it was, ho-hum, they're going to score again probably very soon, and they didn't do it. That was it. That was their last touchdown they scored in the game, which is just mind-boggling that happened, that they got shut out in the second half and Mount Pleasant won it. But Kimani Brown, just a special player. We're going to be seeing a lot of that this year.
Well, let's look at the other side of the equation, and that's Mount Pleasant's submission to plays of the week. And the host Vikings, they had the last lap. They capped off their improbable comeback with the touchdown late in the final quarter. The defining play, though, it wasn't the touchdown. It was a long pass from Dane Firmstone to Tristan Werkowitz to set up the winning score, again called by Brent and Anthony.
1st and 10, back to pass. Receiver to the near side of the field. He's got him. It is complete. He's going to have to catch him from behind. He is able to do it before a touchdown, but a huge play there to number 44, Tristan Werkowitz. And the Mount Pleasant Vikings are looking to take the lead here.
Biggest play of the game for the Vikings at an opportune time. Werkowitz hauls it in, gets past Kimani Brown. Kimani Brown finally makes the tackle, but not until the ball is spotted at the 2-yard line.
Well, Sean, Mount Pleasant's known for its running attack. They won't throw the ball very often, but they need to do things like that in order to win games, and you saw it right there. By the way, a lot of people do say Werkowitz. It is Turkowitz, his mom. He's a wrestler. His mom actually told us last year, Turkowitz. So hopefully Smitty's watching, so he'll remember that for wrestling season. But if you look back at that play, Kimani Brown was this close to breaking that pass up. He got there just a hair late, and maybe Jeanette wins the game if that happens. Obviously, it didn't. Big play call there by Jason Fazekas.
That's why they say it's a game of inches.
Game of inches, buddy.
We'll wrap up plays of the week with Franklin Regional. Although the Panthers had a night to forget against Plum, they did show some life in the third quarter, courtesy of a pair of touchdowns by Jet Taylor. His second score from the quarterback position got FR back within a score, with Jonathan Whaley providing the commentary.
But this is where your offensive line can grow up a little bit here. Tight formation, bunched up, line defense on offense. And the guy, touchdown! Touchdown run! Score!
Well, as we wrap up Plays of the Week with Franklin Regional, that's a nice little segue to the man that I'll be talking to next, and that is the Franklin Regional grad, now the Kiski area head coach, Colin Haw, who won his first ever game as a high school coach this past Friday, guiding the Cavaliers. We'll take a break, come back to hear from him. Stick around for that right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Along the arc of a woman's life, there are many passages. Growing up, chasing dreams, building a career, embracing wisdom born of experience. There are times that make good health and well-being so vital. We provide care that helps women thrive at any age, at any stage. Independence Health System. Expert care here.
At Smale Kia, we know that winning takes hard work, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. By sponsoring Shining Stars, we'll select 2 teams each season to help fund their booster programs. Rewarding their hard work, athletic progress, and community service is an investment we're proud to make. Congrats to our previous Shining Star winners, and good luck. Get super low lease payments or thousands off the top when you buy. This week at Smale Kia, Route 30 East Greensburg, or smalekia.com.
Sean Myers now joined by Colin Haw, the first-year head coach of the Kiski area Cavaliers. And first off, Colin, congrats. Victory number 1 at the high school level as a head coach with that shutout victory against the Knock Knights. I'm sure you were awfully happy with how the debut went. Not only getting your first win, getting your first shutout as a coach as well. What was that moment like?
Yeah, first off, thanks, Sean, for having me on. I appreciate you taking the time with me. But yeah, it was a special moment. It was my first opportunity. I mean, I've been coaching for a long time, but first opportunity as a head coach, and seeing all the work that my staff and my players have put into this season so far, and it come to fruition on a Friday night was awesome. And I thought our defense had a great game plan. Our defensive coaches did a great job of getting our players prepared, and especially with what Knock had done on offense in the scrimmage. They did a lot of different things, and we had to prepare for a lot of different things. So we had a great game plan going into it, and they did a good job of executing it.
You mentioned you've been coaching for a long time. You came from the college ranks to take over this spot at Kiski area. What has that transition been like, and what are maybe some of the biggest adjustments you've had to make to now being a head coach at the high school level?
Yeah, I think, the biggest adjustments that, you have to make from college to high school is these are kids. They're some of these kids. There isn't a college that's coming after them to play football. They're just playing football because they really, really love the game and they want to enjoy being a kid and doing something that they love to do. So you have to find that happy medium of making it fun for them and also at the same time making them have to, understand that there's a time to work and a time to play. Where in college you can, you still want to make it fun, but at the same time your grind is a little bit different. The kids are there because they choose to be there, as far as they chose that school for a reason. They chose because they wanted to win and they wanted to be great. And at the high school level, it's not saying that they don't. It's just you have a lot of younger kids that have a lot of different interests rather than just one interest or two interests. So,
what do you think is unique about you as a coach? And we know that your predecessor, Sam Albert, was an old school guy. He had been around a long, long time. So I'm sure for the players. It was a pretty stark contrast from he to you, but what do you think stands out about your coaching style and what you want to bring to this team?
I like to say that I like to be really detail oriented. Everything we do, we want to be detailed from, the small things. For instance, our coaching staff and putting together a script and making sure that our practice script is detailed from period 1 to period 20. Just those little things, because if you're detailed there, hopefully that shows to the players that those little things are important, so that they understand to be detailed in every little thing they do. From what they're wearing on game day, making sure that they have all their equipment on, all the way to being in the right position in a certain blitz, or being in the right position in certain coverage. Those things, those little things will always add up to the big things. And I think that's one of my things. I was always a detail oriented guy as a player, and I became that as a coach as well.
One thing that I think is fascinating about week 0 for the teams that play in it, and that's the vast majority of the teams now in the WPIAL, is sometimes you have to expect the unexpected. And I don't know that many people thought that Avon Shirley was going to be your starting quarterback, or that you would lean as heavily as you did upon a freshman running back in Ashton Taylor, who had a terrific performance. I know it wasn't maybe a surprise for you, but from the outsiders, it was kind of an interesting turn of events. So how did that all play out, with probably the most accomplished receiver on the Cavaliers getting his opportunity to get some snaps behind center?
Yeah, Avon's one of the leaders of our team. Avon never complains. He wasn't his first choice to go to quarterback, because there's some things he's holding special about being a wide receiver here at Kiski for his senior year and wanting to accomplish those things. But at the end of the day, the number one goal for these guys is to win, and we're going to do anything we can to do that. And if that meant him being quarterback until we get guys back and get healthy, he'll do it. So that's one of those things that I enjoy about these guys, is we don't have a lot of selfish guys. They'll do whatever they need to do to accomplish the goal. Now, I will say this, I've been doing this, like we've already said, we've been doing it for a long time, and there's a lot of coaches out there, and every coach will agree. Your game plan, within the first 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to know whether or not you're going to stick to it, or you're going to adjust it a little bit. So we had to adjust some things because of what Knock was doing to us. And once we got comfortable, we kept it very, very simple moving forward, and the young running back took advantage of that.
I know you probably can't reveal maybe necessarily everything that happens in the locker room, but was there something that the players did for you since it was your first victory?
I mean, the ice bath was great. That was awesome to have. I
were you expecting it?
I was not. No, not at all. I mean, I was getting ready to walk out at the 50-yard line, and all of a sudden it came from the left, and I've never been in that position ever, and it was a lot colder than I expected it to be. That's for sure. I think they put extra ice in the fourth quarter to make sure that thing was going to be cold on me. So
there's, I'm sure, a lot of guys who were contributors on last year's team that maybe were disappointed that the Cavaliers weren't chosen as a wild card team. I know you weren't with the program last year, but it was a really strong finish to 2024. I think they had an argument to be in the playoffs. They were left out. Has that, from what you've seen from the players, been a motivating factor at all?
It was. I mean, when we first got here, that's one of the things those guys were talking about. They were, when we started lifting and we got into the grind of the off season, the thought process was we want to take full advantage of the entire season, not wait till the end to kick it into gear. We want to start early, start fast, and then finish at the end. So, they were definitely disappointed. They worked hard in the off season. The summer was great, and those guys, they have one thing in mind, and that's to win. And one of the things that we're doing is we're just making it simple and just winning the day. Winning every day, and then when Friday rolls around, we're going to win that day. And that's our mindset.
You're going to be punching up this week because you go against a 6A team in Norwin, and the Knights were very competitive in a loss against Penn Trafford. I had to call it, and I think they have an argument to say that maybe they should have won the game based on how it kind of ended there. What do you see from Norwin one weekend that stands out about the Knights?
Yeah, I think they're very, very well coached. They're disciplined on both sides of the football. They're a physical team. I like their physicality. I think that gives us a lot to work with as far as a team. It'll test what we are. It'll test who we are as a team. See if we can match that physicality. And we're going to do everything we can to match it. We're giving up some numbers. They have a bigger roster size than we do. We have a smaller roster size for a 5A program. But that doesn't mean we're not going to go toe to toe and throw haymakers back and forth with a bigger program. So I think it's gonna be a fun challenge.
Their quarterback, Tristan Tavares, is one of the more experienced, one of the more decorated quarterbacks that you'll probably see all season. He had a pretty good game passing. He had an even better game running the football. How much of a challenge does he present to a defense?
Yeah, anytime you have a running quarterback who can do both, who's dual threat and can hurt you with his arm and his legs, you have to sign people to him. You got to make sure that there's bodies that are accounting for him. You can't lose him in the shuffle. You got to know where he's at, and you got to be able to make plays against him. You got to get him out of his rhythm. Once he gets in a rhythm, that's what good quarterbacks do. They get in a rhythm and they make plays. If you can get him out of that rhythm, you can get him to struggle a little bit. So our goal is to disrupt his rhythm and disrupt his ability to get moving.
In addition to that, what are some of the biggest keys to victory?
First and foremost, we can't have the penalties we had this past weekend. If we have the same amount of penalties and same type of penalties, those are sometimes daggers. We got to get off the field on third down. That was one of the things that we did okay with. We would have done better had the penalties not been there. We can't turn the ball over. You have to play mistake-free football on both sides on offense. You got to be willing to take some chances on both sides of the football. But you can't turn the football over. That'll kill you as well. And then we got to be able to generate some explosive plays. If we can generate explosive plays, that's going to give us an opportunity to win this football game.
Lastly, for those unaware, you are a Franklin Regional grad, so you're a Westmoreland County guy. You know all about Kiski area even before you became the head coach. It's a team that you played against in high school with the Panthers. What so far in your experience there, and especially after that week 0 victory, makes the football community and the Kiski area community as a whole so special?
I've used this term a lot, and I look at my interviews and I reread them. And I'm like, why do I use that term? But it's the truth. The term I use is grit. Kiski area is gritty. There's a lot of blue collar workers in this area. There's a lot of people that have fought for everything they have, and they continue to fight. And that's how our players are, from all the way down from the 7-year-olds all the way up to our 18-year-olds. KVL to middle school to high school, they're just gritty. And we'll find ways to make it happen and make it work. And it's not unlike my senior year in high school. We weren't the biggest program. We weren't the fastest. We didn't have all the numbers, but we found a way to win, and we made it happen. So I think we got guys that care enough where we're going to be gritty enough and tough enough to win some football games.
Colin, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Great talking to you for the first of hopefully many, many times.
Sean, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That is Colin Haw, the head coach of Kiski area. We'll take a break and continue with more after this.
At Elliott Community Federal Credit Union, we're here to make your financial journey easier and more rewarding. With open membership to all that live, work, worship, or study in Westmoreland County, everyone can take advantage of our competitive loan rates, whether you're doing home improvements, buying a car, or making a personal purchase. Plus, enjoy free checking and online banking with remote deposits, so you can manage your money anytime, anywhere. Elliott Community Federal Credit Union. Make our house your financial home.
I feel like it's definitely very important, for high school, because a lot of kids, get peer pressured into drinking and doing drugs. So, doing the events, in a school setting, I feel like definitely, try to prevent kids from, going to, parties and drinking and driving and doing drugs and being peer pressured.
We just want to talk about the dangers of the substance abuse in our community, and we want to help be a part of stopping that.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Dan Flickinger now with you. I want to thank Sean Myers, my colleague, and also Colton Haw, the new head coach of the Kiski area Cavaliers, for joining us here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. But it's now time to turn our attention to our Week 0 Westmoreland County Player of the Week, a two-time winner here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. He is none other than Dom Dietrich, senior quarterback for the Hempfield area Spartans, and what a start for Hempfield, a victory over North Hills in Week 0, where Dom went 14 of 17, threw for over 200 yards and also 3 touchdowns. Dom, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Yeah. How good does it feel to be 1-0 and actually get to play in the opening game of the season, unlike last year?
Yeah. Oh, it's there's nothing. I mean, best thing about going 1-0, our coach Trevor, he always says is you can go 2-0. So I mean, and there's nothing like it.
Yeah, talking about Trevor Petrillo, one of my favorite guys to talk to when we come out to camp. So tell me, Don, 3 touchdown passes. Obviously, things were working in the passing game against North Hills. What was really clicking for you as you kind of look at it?
They play a lot of man coverage, so it's just kind of about winning your matchup. And Aiden Steinbeiser, I couldn't say enough about him today or on here because he just played his tail off. But he won his matchup out of the backfield a lot of times, and that helped us big time because just having that extra receiver is huge. And, yeah, I just think our guys won their matchups, and Coach Keefe called a good game. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is that an element that, maybe you didn't have the last couple of years and Aiden doing so well and being able to catch the ball out of the backfield? How does that help the offense?
Oh, like I said, it's like having that fifth receiver out there, and he did it well last year. He's a very good receiving back, and it does definitely add another element to the offense.
So I know you threw a touchdown pass to him, some of your other boys as well, but was there one touchdown pass that was your favorite last week? And if you could kind of take us maybe through it.
I would probably. I know last time I was on here, I said the first one, and that's definitely true. That big one to Jack, just because it gets you going for the game. But this time, I would probably say the one after the interception, which you hate to talk about, but it does get you back into the swing of things. And I think that one was the one to Aiden. So it just kind of gets you rolling again and gets you back into the groove of the game.
Well, you got to knock that rust off, man. It's week 0. That's for sure. Yeah. Kind of talk about what you like most about the offense coming into this season. You obviously have some weapons, some veteran guys, which not every team is able to. You don't have veterans every single year at a lot of skilled positions like you guys do. So, what do you like most about this offense?
Our class has been running this offense for all 4 years we've been in the high school, so that helps. But being able to have a balanced attack and, like you said, having veteran weapons everywhere is just, you don't know if we'll be able to run the ball, we're going to throw the ball. So I think that's what I like most about it this year.
So we mentioned about Aiden Steinbeiser. I want to talk about him a little bit more. Had a really good game. Not only caught that touchdown pass, but also rushed for one and ran for 130 yards. So you guys were doing it on the ground as well. And I know it starts up front, but with Aiden, how much is the running game going to help you this year?
Oh, it opens up the pass game. And obviously as a quarterback, I'd like to sit here and say I like to throw the ball, but if we can run the ball and win the game, that's what we're going to do. But him being able to open up passing lanes and make people respect the run is just, he runs the ball and plays harder than anybody I've ever seen. So, and he just plays with so much passion, and it's awesome to have him back there with me.
What's your relationship? I mentioned your boys earlier, the guys on the outside like Jack Kopis, Nick Marcus, and others. What makes you guys kind of tough to beat offensively with the relationship you have with those guys?
Oh, them are guys I talk to. I see every day of my life. I text Nick, Drew Jones, Henry, all of them guys literally every single day. And growing up, going to the field and just by ourselves, throwing all the time in the summer and after school and stuff. And it's starting to click now here senior year. So, which is crazy to say, but.
Well, you are a senior. What do you think you've improved on most coming into this season, looking back at previous years?
I would say just understanding defenses, and that I would say that's honestly someone can throw the ball 75 yards, but if they don't know what they're looking at or anything like the mental side of playing quarterback, you can't be a good quarterback. So I would say that's something that just sitting down with Coach Keefe and being able to talk through football stuff like that, I think that's the thing I improved most with.
Do you have any pregame rituals you can tell us about, Dom? I always like asking guys this. Some don't have any. Some have some quirky things. What do you do?
I wouldn't say I have more of a routine than a ritual, but we as a team we go through our pregame lift every day. And obviously in school I'm watching film all day just to kind of like see if there's anything I miss, see if we miss throughout the week. But and then we go through our pregame lift as a team always, and I make sure I get through my arm care. And then when it comes to game time, I go out a little bit early on the field and throw with Jack most of the time, just one guy, and then the rest of the guys come out and we get through that. But then before all that, normally I like to go out by myself and just kind of run through game scenarios in my head when there's nobody else on the field. And so I would say routine more than a ritual, but a little bit, yeah.
Who's your favorite college or NFL players or anybody that you kind of emulate your game after that's playing at the next level right now?
I would say someone that I've always like looked up to was Matt Stafford, someone a little bit different than I bet you hear most of the time. But I just think he's just such a tough quarterback, and just his mental side of things, like I was talking about earlier, are really cool. So I would say him.
I like that. Yeah, everyone wants to say Mahomes or Burrow or something like Lamar Jackson, but I like that, man. He took a beating in Detroit and then ended up winning a Super Bowl. So that's pretty cool. So right now, you guys are 1-0, and I know you have a lot of optimism coming into this year. One of your team goals, I'm sure, is making the playoffs. How do you guys get there? What is your belief right now in being a playoff team? I know you're taking it week by week, but looking at the long-term goals.
We just everybody got to do their job each and every week. That's the biggest thing. And just, we can't take no plays off every game. It's going to be a team effort. And that's all 11 guys, all 22 guys. That's what it's going to take every week. And everybody knows that, I think, and we're all on board with it.
Finally, you play Franklin Regional this week. You're looking to go 2-0, like Coach Petrillo said. Always a physical team. I know they didn't get off to a great start to the season last week, so they're going to be hungry coming into this game. What do you guys have to do well? Some of the things maybe you've seen that they do. What do you have to do well, though, to come away with a win?
Like I said, everybody's just going to have to do their job both ways. I mean, in 5 and 6A football, everybody has athletes. Everybody has somebody that can go make a play at any given moment. So we can't take anybody lightly, and we just have to. Everybody got to do their job, and we should be able to do whatever we want offensively if that's the case. And the defense, I mean, Coach Zach's defense, can't say enough about them guys, and I know they'll do their job. So, yeah.
Dom, thank you so much for doing this. 2-time winner here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, Dom Dietrich, and we'll have the game on Friday night. You guys going up against Franklin Regional, and hey, man, keep rocking that number 18. I know what you're playing for, and we're all pulling for you, all rooting for you, buddy. And again, congratulations on winning, and good luck on Friday. Okay.
Thank you.
That is Dom Dietrich, our Week 0 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. We'll finish up the show, Westmoreland on the Gridiron, as we look at Week 1 matchups right here on WSN.
Into Mike Camlin Hyundai during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. New 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe's and Palisades, both available with 0% financing for 60 months. All vehicles are backed by the Mike Camlin Advantage. Oil changes for life.
DBAT Pittsburgh East, the area's premier baseball and softball training academy, is now open in Westmoreland County. Our 20,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility features dual fungo man pitching machines, hit tracks enabled cages, and professional bullpens. With private baseball and softball instruction, we're here to help you dominate the diamond. And don't forget to stop into our pro shop, powered by Rawlings and Easton, for the latest gear. DBAT Pittsburgh East, now open in export. Visit dbatpiteast.com.
Back here for our final segment on the first 2025 edition of the Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. And Flick, great stuff with Dom Dietrich. And as you mentioned, very deserving, a great interview, and a great young man.
Always love talking to Dom, like I said, whether it's an interview setting or, we had a chance to talk with those guys, him and Brock Heisler and Gerst, before we actually started those interviews for our training camp preview. So
in the gym, by the way.
Yeah, we were in the gym while they were like crab crawling behind us The rest of the
we got
team,
those guys out of having to do that.
Yeah, Brock actually thanked us for that. But he's a good kid too. Those are some really good guys over there. So we're hoping the best for them. And of course, Dom, man, everyone's behind him. From Hempfield, Penn Trafford, Jeanette, everyone's hoping for a big season for him.
Yeah, nonetheless, he was our player of the week, and that's not our decision, Dan. That was the people's decision.
That is correct. Is The Rock going to come out now that we're talking about the people? Okay.
Maybe. Bring Travis Scott
Where'd
out
he go,
with him
by
for
the
some
way?
reason.
Anyway, we had almost 2,000 votes for our Week 0 Player of the Week. And again, congratulations to Dom Dietrich, completed only through 3 incompletions, 14-17, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. But Aiden Schaefer, a lot of folks voted for him as well. That was really cool to see the Yacht guy rushing for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns. You mentioned Max Doherty's big day, 148 rushing yards. Tristan Tavares was also a nominee this week. Threw 3 touchdowns. Rushed for 3 touchdowns and threw for 1. And then Ben Grabowski, we mentioned just a monster game for him as well for Penn Trafford, 188 yards and 3 touchdowns. This year, Sean, we're really excited to be partnering with our guys at Home Team Collections. They will be actually putting together frames for every one of our Player of the Week winners. So congratulations to Dom and congratulations to all of our future Player of the Week winners. They'll be getting frames from our friends at Home Team Collections. Thanks a lot to Chad Reed over there for putting that together. They've been everywhere. Home Team Collections have been everywhere if you pay attention to social media. So they do a lot of great things.
I like the one that they made for you with all the Westmoreland County football teams, both high school and college.
It's awesome. Yeah, he was like, "What do you want the colleges in there?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. We cover St. Vincent, of course, and of course Seton Hill as well." So that's on our Twitter if you want to check that out. He made that really nice piece for me. But you can get framed jerseys. You can actually special order jerseys if you want, like an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey or something, or
a Sean Myers deck hockey jersey.
Yeah, one of those. I don't know that he has any of those in stock yet, but I'm sure he could get one, and then you could sign it. I don't know how much he'd sell it for, but you could try.
Negative money. All right. Well, let's look ahead at the Week 1 schedule, and we're gonna have several of these games on our airwaves, including a couple of all Westmoreland clashes, which we love because we're guaranteed one Westmoreland County team's going to win. I guess you could look at it the other way as well, but let's not worry about that. We begin with Hempfield area at Franklin Regional. One team riding high in the Spartans, one team that desperately wants to get that bad taste out of its mouth in the Panthers. I would imagine FR will have a better showing this week. That said, I like Hempfield area as a team that, was at least in the discussion for the playoffs last year, maybe to take another step forward this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Hempfield, especially based on last week, will be heavily favored. And you look at the Spartans, they return a lot of skilled guys from last year, where Franklin Regional does not, as we mentioned. And then Steinbeiser gets his feet wet as well at the running back position. So I think this is a game that, Hempfield has a chance to maybe make another statement. And Franklin Regional playing at home again, they have an opportunity for a bounce back. So it'll be exciting to see a couple of local teams go at it.
Another Westmoreland County clash, Kiski area at Norwin. We heard from the first-year head coach, Colin Haw, about the keys against the Knights. Norwin, of course, they will be motivated after they had seemingly a victory ripped away from them, at least from their perspective, last week at PT. Very competitive showing for the Knights, and now they get some home cooking as well for the first time this year. Derry area heads to Freeport to play the Yellow Jackets. That is a 3A versus 3A matchup. Obviously, these are all non-conference matchups, but that one could count a little bit more because when you're playing another team in your same classification, there's potentially more implications on the line. Jeanette at Apollo Ridge as the Jayhawks look to bounce back. The Vikings are 1-0. We will have that one as well. All 4 of those games that I've mentioned will be on our airwaves. Jeanette and the Vikings will be an audio broadcast. Penn Trafford heads to the South Hills to play Mount Lebanon. The Blue Devils coming off of a loss, but they're a pretty good team in Class 6A. They've got an outstanding dual threat quarterback as well. The Warriors will probably see a lot of those this year. Second time in as many weeks they're going against a very good QB. Greater Latrobe looks to get back in the win column after their disappointing showing last week. The Wildcats head to Plum to play the 1-0 Mustangs, who put a licking on Franklin Regional. Flick, this is a fun matchup. because it's two teams that have had some great success over the past decade. They both have won titles. And really, most seasons you can pencil them in as title contenders. Aliquippa at Bell Vernon area. They also have one other thing in common. They're both playing their first game of the season. Two of the teams that did not play real games in week 0. So I think it's a little bit different for those teams because this is their first real run at it.
Yeah, there was some debate. I think people thought that this was I should say that Bell Vernon and West Allegheny was an actual game last week, but
I thought that.
Yeah, it was not. It was a scrimmage. I did initially as well. Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. Obviously Aliquippa continues to do what it does. Bell Vernon, new faces this year, but just looking at the game, on paper, seeing those two teams play one another, I think there'll be excitement there. Aliquippa might take that excitement away quickly from Bell Vernon fans. We'll see, though. And that'll certainly be, an interesting one for Scott Breyer as the head coach of the Bell Vernon Leopards to open his head coaching career against the Aliquippa Quips.
And keep in mind, they sort of played the game last year, but it got canceled in the first half. So Aliquippa was already seemingly in control, but we'll never know. There was no true outcome. So we'll finally get to see those teams lock horns here in 2025.
And by the way, Sean, our thoughts and prayers with the Aliquippa junior high football team after the bus accident.
Scary.
And I know one of the young men there is still in the hospital. So our thoughts and prayers with Aliquippa.
Yeah, that was a very scary situation on Saturday morning. Another Westmoreland County clash, Greensburg Central Catholic and Mount Pleasant. This will be fun because I think you can use the transitive property a little bit with GCC and Jeanette to see how the Centurions fare against the Vikings after the Jayhawks came up just short against them a week ago. Greensburg Salem heads to Weller Field to play the Ligonier Valley Rams. Both those teams looking to get their first win of the campaign. Southmoreland at East Allegheny. This used to be the Don Pecora Bowl, not anymore, as the Scotties look to go to 2-0. EA is 0-1 on the season. Real chance for the York Cougars to get to 2-0. They are at Cougar Mountain hosting the Charleroi Cougars. I know the Cougars will win that game. Charleroi was on the wrong end. You like that one? You like that horse?
It was okay.
They were on the wrong end of a blowout last week against Monessen. Burrell at Shady Side Academy. Keep in mind the Bulldogs got that impressive win against GCC, so another tough opponent for the Buccaneers. Monessen at West Green. We also have our first Saturday game for Westmoreland County high school team.
Yep.
Yes, the Valley Vikings at the Riverview Raiders. Maybe I'll swing over and watch that game. We'll see.
Sure.
Probably not, but I could if I wanted to. That is noon on Saturday. Keep in mind, Riverview's home field does not have permanent lights. Usually once a year they bring in the lights, but most of the games will be played Saturday in the afternoon. And Flick, before all of those games, we will have a broadcast on Thursday, and that is Seton Hill opening its 2025 season. The Griffins welcome Fairmont State after they lost in Fairmont a year ago. And it is another coaching debut. Kevin May, formerly the outstanding defensive coordinator, now gets his first game as the head coach for the Griffs.
Yeah, we go from day to May. How about that?
Not May to day.
Not May to day. That'd be even fun, cooler, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Yeah, this should be interesting, man. I mean, Kevin May, he's been the Griffins defensive coordinator for all 6 years under previous coach Dan Day, and the defense has been marvelous. They've been really, really good. So they promoted him immediately, and I think that makes a lot of sense. The guy, is very accomplished on the defensive side of the ball. Technically, he's still going to have a big hand in the defense, even though they do have a defensive coordinator. So it'll be interesting to see him make his coaching debut. You also look, offensively, mentioned the defense is going to be good. They have a lot of guys coming back, but offensively, the Connellsville Falcon, Kyron Craigett, is back this year. One of the best running backs in the region, best in the PSAC. It'll be a lot of fun to see him and see what kind of season he's going to have for Seton Hill.
Yeah, and maybe the best receiver, Cody Rubrek, by way of Greensburg Salem. Starting quarterback, Hayden Teska, also a former Golden Line. They're playing on the same field that they played at at GS. Well, Flick, we're just about ready to put a bow on this one. Anything you want to mention before we sign off our first episode of 2025?
Well, we always talk about all of our features that we have during the week. Of course, every Monday, Sean puts together the Westmoreland Notebook, kind of encompasses all of the smaller type stories that go on during the week in Westmoreland County. We have our Westmoreland County football preview every Friday morning. You can get up, grab some coffee, take the dog out, come back in, and then read the Westmoreland County football preview every Friday. Jack Ridenauer does a great job with Recruiting Thursday. He'll be talking with Colton Tyberski, who committed to Seton Hill baseball and is a Penn Trafford Warrior football player, coming up this Thursday. So those are some of the things that's going on during the week. And don't forget, every Friday night, we also have our scores that are tweeted out and our scoreboard on our website. You can keep track of everything going on in Westmoreland County.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, one episode in the books and maybe about a dozen or so to go before the 2025 season ultimately comes to an end. Flick, glad to be back doing it. Let's do it again this time next week.
Let's do it, buddy.
That is Dan Flicking or Sean Myers signing off. We'll catch you again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.